Welcome to this next video in the series of videos creating the multiple choice program. Now I've had to swap to some different software here simply because some equipment I need for the other software I don't have available at the moment. So moving on anyway, so using this slightly different recording software, what we are at the stage of is where a user has chosen one of the multiple choice options, we now need to process their choice to see if it's right or wrong. Now, what we're going to need to do then is to create a function that will do that processing. So I'm going to call this process question. Now the first thing I'm going to do is to disable each of the radio buttons once a user has chosen one of them. Now we have a variable that we created before, you can actually see it up here, which figures out how many choices there are, how many radio buttons there are, in other words. So we want to use a for loop using that number of choices as the number of times we're going to go through the for loop. And what we want to do is to select each of the radio buttons, which are these things called RBS, self.rbs, and we need some sort of way of selecting each of them. So we use that variable I. And we're going to use the configure method, and we're going to set it to disabled. So this function as it currently stands will simply disable each of the radio buttons when a user has selected one of them. Now for that to work, we need to add in some command binding into each of the radio buttons, which we have not yet done. Okay, don't forget to take out that open and close bracket like that. Now all going well, this should now actually work, and let's test it. Okay, so begin quiz. Okay, and I do not have any of the radio buttons there. So let me just pause the video and try and sort out what the issue is. Okay, back here now. What I had was a couple of brackets essentially in the wrong place here in this self.rbs.append. I had an incorrect bracket over this end and didn't have the two closing brackets properly. So have a look at that, that's what it needs to be now. Alright, so this actually is working. Let me just show that. Begin quiz, choose one of the options, and the radio buttons are now disabled. What we now need to do is to see if the person has chosen the right answer and make the next question button active. Okay, so moving on with this function here. Now to get the user's choice, there's a variable called self.var which was associated with each radio button when it was made. Here it is. We now need to get that particular value of that radio button, and I want to check to see is it the same as the correct answer. So we need to go to the question object, which is inside self.question, and self.index points to the correct question object, and we need to go and have a look and see is the answer equal to what the user chose. And if it is, we're going to add 1 to self.score. And quickest way of doing that is that plus equals 1. And if that's the case, we want to then configure the score text and we want to configure the text as score colon space, and we want to add that string again with the updated score. Okay, that looks okay. No, it doesn't. We've got an underscore here for some weird reason, which we don't want. That looks better. Save that and let's run that. Okay, I know the correct answer for this one is A at the moment, the first choice. So let's click on that. Okay, and while there was a bit of a pause, eventually it did work and we've increased the score by 1 here. Okay, it's all good. So let's now finish this off. Now, just to save a bit of time, I'm going to just pause the video, type in some text here, and then pick it up once I've got a bit of text in. Okay, now we're back here. I have put some extra text in here, as you can see, some extra lines of code. So what is this doing? This is basically checking to see is the value of self.index equal to the length of the questions list minus 1. Now the reason for that is that why the minus 1 there, we basically need to check to see if self.index is up to the last position in that list of question objects. And this is the way that you correctly calculate that, because remember len starts at 1. So when you calculate the length of that list and it comes up with 3, the actual positions are 0, 1 and 2. So self.index would be checking to see if we're up to position 2. I hope that makes sense. If not, ask me about it, please. Okay, now basically if we're up to the last question and that's been processed, we don't want to have the button say next question. We want it instead to say retake quiz. So that is what's happened here. And the state being normal makes the button active. Now this here, this else part, is essentially what will happen if we're not yet up to the last question. All that will happen is that that button, its state will become normal so it can be clicked on. Now, there should be some command binding associated with this button. At the moment there is none because we haven't yet created that sort of binding. But let's run this and just see if I click on one of these options, they should become disabled and this button should become active. Okay, so the answer was the wrong one, so no increase in the score, but next question has become active. Okay, alright, we now need to move on to basically either the next question or to write some code to retake the quiz. So we're going to write the next question module next.